This audiobook is not about motivation. It is about control. If you cannot control your attention, you cannot control your life. Every distraction you tolerate is training you to become someone weaker, slower, and easier to replace. Becoming the person you want to be is not a feeling. It is a discipline. And discipline is built in silence, reinforced by systems, and proven by what you do every single day, especially when no one is watching. This is the path back to focus. This is the end of excuses. This is how identity is forged. Chapter 1. Stop waiting for motivation. Stop waiting. That is the first instruction. Waiting for motivation is not patience. It is avoidance. Motivation is a feeling. Feelings are unstable. They rise. They fall. They disappear without warning. You cannot build a life on something that does not obey you. That's the key. If your action depends on motivation, your results will be inconsistent. If your action depends on structure, your results become predictable. You do not rise to inspiration. You fall to your structure. Read that again. You do not rise to inspiration. You fall to your structure. Every day, your structure decides who you become. You have a choice. Most people live as if they don't. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel confident. They wait to feel motivated. That waiting is training them to be passive. It's not about desire. It's about discipline. High performers understand this early. They do not ask how they feel. They ask what the schedule says. The writer writes at the same time every day. The athlete trains whether energy is high or low. The professional shows up before confidence arrives. They do not negotiate with their mood. That's the key. Motivation follows action. Action does not follow motivation. If you reverse that order, you lose. You don't need their permission. You don't need encouragement. You don't need to feel inspired. You need a system. A system is a decision made once and followed many times. A system removes choice. Choice drains energy. Every time you decide whether to act, you spend willpower. Every time you follow a system, you conserve it. This is not a theory. This is observable behavior. Look at people who produce consistently. They are boring in their process. Predictable. Routine-driven. They're not chasing motivation. They're obeying structure. You have a choice. You can build a life that depends on how you feel, or you can build a life that runs whether you feel like it or not. That's the key. Here is the first rule. Rule 1. No daily action should depend on motivation. If something matters, it must be scheduled. If it is not scheduled, it is optional. If it is optional, it will be skipped. This applies to focus. This applies to training. This applies to thinking. You do not wake up and decide whether today is a focus day. That decision should already be made. Remove the question. Install the behavior. This is what it means to let routines carry the weight. A routine is a system in time. Same action, same trigger, same sequence. Morning arrives. The routine starts. No debate. You don't need their permission. You don't need to justify it. You execute. Most people fail here because they believe routine kills creativity. That belief is false. Routine protects creativity. Routine protects focus. Routine protects identity. When the basics are automated, the mind is free to work deeply. That's the key. Here is the second rule. Rule 2. Decide in advance, then obey. Decide when you will work. Decide how long you will work. Decide what done means. Then stop revisiting the decision. Redeciding is a form of procrastination. Redeciding feels productive, but it produces nothing. High performers decide once. Then they act on schedule. They do not wake up asking, "Do I feel like it?" They wake up knowing what happens next. You have a choice. If your days feel chaotic, it is because your decisions are happening in real time. Real-time decisions are influenced by emotion. Emotion is unreliable. Structure is not. That's the key. Now understand this clearly. It's not about intensity. It's about consistency. A small action done daily will outperform a massive effort done occasionally. This is how systems win. You're not trying to have a perfect day. You're trying to have a repeatable day. Repeatable beats perfect. Here is the third rule. Rule 3. Lower the requirement, raise the consistency. Do not ask, how much can I do? Ask, what can I repeat without negotiation? That might be 30 minutes of focused work. That might be a fixed start time. That might be one non-negotiable task. Small, controlled, repeatable. You do not rise to inspiration. You fall to your structure. Repetition is not punishment. It is training. Every time you act without motivation, you reinforce a new identity. The identity of someone who does what they said they would do. That's the key. This is where most people misunderstand discipline. Discipline is not force. Discipline is design. You design your environment. You design your schedule. You design your triggers. Then you follow them. If you rely on willpower, you will eventually fail. Willpower is a limited resource. Systems are not. Remove friction where action is required. Add friction where distraction exists. This is system thinking. For example, if focus matters, your phone does not sit on your desk. That is not discipline. That is design. If thinking matters, you schedule thinking time. You do not fit it in. If progress matters, you track execution, not feelings. You have a choice. You can continue to believe motivation is the problem, or you can accept the truth. It's not about motivation. It's about structure. Say it again. It's not about motivation. It's about structure. That's the key. Now understand the consequence. Every day you wait for motivation, you reinforce a weak pattern. Every day you act on schedule, you reinforce a strong one. Identity is not what you claim. Identity is what you repeat. This chapter is not asking you to feel different. It is instructing you to behave differently. Remove decision-making from your most important actions. Install routines that run automatically. Let the system carry you when motivation disappears. Because it will disappear. That is guaranteed. You don't need their permission. You don't need approval. You don't need excitement. You need a structure you respect. And if you follow it long enough, motivation will catch up. Not because you chased it, but because you no longer needed it. That's the key. In the next chapter, you will learn why silence is required for this system to work, and why constant noise destroys the very focus you're trying to build. Chapter 2. Silence is not empty, it is training. Silence is not the absence of sound. Silence is the absence of interference. Most people do not understand this. They think silence is relaxation. They think silence is leisure. They are wrong. Silence is training. A distracted mind cannot become a disciplined identity. Say it again. A distracted mind cannot become a disciplined identity. Noise fragments attention. Fragmented attention produces fragmented action. Fragmented action produces a fragmented self. That's the chain. You do not lose focus all at once. You lose it in pieces. Notification by notification. Input by input. You have a choice. You can continue to live inside constant stimulation, or you can deliberately remove it. That's the key. High performers do not fear silence. They schedule it. Thinkers isolate themselves to think clearly. Athletes use quiet routines before competition to narrow attention. Leaders step away from noise to make decisions that matter. This is not accidental. This is not personality. This is training. Silence is where attention relearns how to stay still. If your mind constantly jumps, it is because you trained it to jump. Training can be reversed, but only through silence. It's not about peace. It's about control. Silence removes stimulation so the mind can relearn depth. Depth cannot exist in noise. That's the key. Most people panic when there is no input. They reach for something. Music, a screen, a voice. This reflex is not harmless. It is conditioning. You're training your mind to avoid stillness. And a mind that avoids stillness cannot focus. You have a choice. You can escape boredom, or you can use it. Silence often feels uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is weakness leaving the system. Do not distract yourself from it. Sit with it. Silence is active resistance against distraction. Here is the first rule. Rule 1. Schedule silence daily. Not when you feel like it. Not when you have time. Daily. Deliberate. Non-negotiable. This might be 10 minutes. It might be 30. The length matters less than the consistency. During this time, there is no input, no phone, no music, no conversation. You sit, you walk, you think, you let the mind slow down. That's the key. This is not meditation for relaxation. This is attention training. You are teaching your mind that it does not need constant stimulation to function. You are restoring its baseline. Without this, focus work will fail, because a noisy mind cannot suddenly become quiet on command. Silence is the preparation. You do not lift heavy weight without warming up. You do not expect focus without silence. Here is the second rule. Rule 2. Protect silence before demanding focus. Most people try to force concentration in a noisy life. They wonder why it feels impossible. The environment is sabotaging them. If your day begins with noise, your attention will be scattered before work even starts. If your day ends with noise, your mind never resets. Silence bookends the day. Morning silence sets direction. Evening silence restores clarity. This is not optional if focus matters. You don't need their permission. You don't need to explain it. You remove noise because you respect your attention. That's the key. Understand this clearly. Silence does not make you slow. It makes you precise. In silence, thoughts become clearer. Priorities become obvious. False urgency fades. Noise creates the illusion of importance. Silence reveals what actually matters. This is why leaders value solitude. This is why thinkers walk alone. This is why disciplined people guard quiet time aggressively. They know something most people ignore. Attention follows environment. Change the environment. The attention will follow. Here is the third rule. Rule 3. Use silence as resistance training. Do not fill silence with productivity. Do not turn it into another task. The point is to do nothing on purpose. Sit with boredom. Notice the urge to reach for stimulation. Do not act on it. Every time you resist, you strengthen control. This is how attention becomes stable. A mind that can remain still without input can remain focused on demand. That's the key. Most people never experience true silence. They live in constant low-level noise. As a result, they think scattered thinking is normal. It is not. It is trained. And what is trained can be untrained. You have a choice. You can continue to flood your senses, or you can reclaim your attention. Silence is not passive. It is an act of discipline. It requires restraint. It requires patience. It requires commitment. This is why it works. Silence exposes you to your own mind. Many avoid it for that reason. Do not avoid it. Your thoughts do not control you. Your attention does. Silence gives you back that control. That's the key. Now, connect this to identity. Every time you choose silence over stimulation, you reinforce a new standard. The standard of someone who does not need constant input. But identity compounds. You become calmer, more deliberate, harder to distract. Not because you try to be calm, but because you trained your attention. It's not about relaxation. It's about discipline. Say it again. It's not about relaxation. It's about discipline. Silence is where discipline begins. Without silence, systems collapse. Without silence, routines feel heavy. Without silence, focus becomes forced. With silence, everything becomes easier. You do not rise to clarity. You fall to your level of quiet. That's the key. In the next chapter, you will learn why silence alone is not enough, and why distraction must be eliminated at the source if discipline is going to last. Chapter 3. Eliminate distraction at the source. You do not manage distraction. You eliminate it. Management assumes distraction is acceptable. It is not. Distraction is not a side effect. It is a cause. What you allow around you shapes who you become. Say it again. What you allow around you shapes who you become. Every input trains you. Every environment conditions you. Nothing is neutral. That's the key. Most people think distraction is a willpower problem. They believe they need more discipline. They are wrong. Distraction is an environmental problem, and environments are designed. You have a choice. You can keep blaming yourself, or you can change what surrounds you. High performers do not fight distraction all day. They remove it before the day begins. They do not rely on self-control. They rely on structure. That's the key. Look closely at your environment. Your phone, your computer, your notifications, your workspace. These are not tools. They are training devices. If they are designed for interruption, they will produce interruption. If they're designed for focus, they will produce focus. It's not about productivity. It's about identity. A distracted environment produces a distracted person. A controlled environment produces a disciplined one. You don't need their permission to change this. You don't need to explain yourself. You decide what enters your attention. Here is the first rule. Rule 1. Remove before you resist. If something repeatedly distracts you, remove it. Do not negotiate. Do not use it less. Remove it. Apps that pull attention. Notifications that interrupt thinking. Inputs that fragment focus. If it does not serve your highest priority, it does not belong in your environment. This is not extreme. This is precise. Every unnecessary input is a tax on attention. Enough taxes and attention collapses. That's the key. Most people try to focus in hostile environments. They sit down to work while surrounded by triggers. This is not discipline. This is sabotage. If you had to concentrate in a room where someone constantly taps your shoulder, you would not blame your focus. You would remove the person. Digital distraction is no different. You have a choice. Remove the source, or continue to fight symptoms. Here is the second rule. Rule 2. Design your environment for default focus. Default behavior matters. What happens when you are tired? What happens when you are bored? What happens when attention drops? Your environment decides. If distraction is easy, you will take it. If focus is easy, you will stay with it. This is not weakness. This is human behavior. So design accordingly. Your workspace should signal one thing: work. Your devices should default to silence. Your tools should open to what matters, not what entertains. This is not productivity hacking. This is identity defense. You are protecting the kind of person you're becoming. That's the key. Understand this clearly. Every time you tolerate distraction, you vote for a weaker identity. Every time you remove it, you vote for a stronger one. Identity is shaped by what you repeatedly allow. Say it again. What you allow around you shapes who you become. Now consider habits. Habits are environments over time. If your habits include constant checking, constant switching, constant input, then distraction is not accidental. It is built in. You do not fix this with motivation. You fix it with removal. Here is the third rule. Rule 3. Eliminate entire categories, not individual temptations. Do not fight one app. Remove the category. Do not fight one habit. Change the routine. For example, if social media fragments your attention, remove it from your phone entirely. Access it only from a controlled location at a scheduled time. If news creates mental noise, limit it to one brief window. No exceptions. If constant messaging interrupts thinking, silence notifications by default. Urgency is rare. Distraction is constant. This is not punishment. This is protection. That's the key. Most people are afraid to remove inputs because they fear missing something. They fear being disconnected. This fear is exaggerated. What you gain is more valuable than what you lose. You gain depth. You gain clarity. You gain control. You don't need their permission to choose this. Now understand the deeper principle. Distraction is not just about attention. It is about authority. When anything can interrupt you, you are not in control of your time. When you are not in control of your time, you are not in control of your life. Eliminating distraction is reclaiming authority. Authority over your schedule. Authority over your focus. Authority over yourself. That's the key. High performers are not more disciplined than everyone else. They are more selective. They are ruthless about inputs. They understand that attention is finite. They guard it. You have a choice. You can live reactively, responding to whatever appears. Or you can live deliberately, choosing what enters your awareness. This choice compounds. Day after day, a clean environment produces a clean mind. A clean mind produces consistent action. Consistent action produces a stable identity. This is the chain. Break the chain at the source. Remove distraction before it demands resistance. Now be precise. Do not attempt to eliminate everything at once. That is not the instruction. Identify the top 3 sources of fragmentation. Remove them completely. No half measures. No trial periods. You decide. You execute. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need to feel confident. You act. That's the key. Remember this phrase. You do not manage distraction. You eliminate it. Say it again. You do not manage distraction. You eliminate it. This is not about being extreme. It is about being intentional. Every environment is a training ground. Make sure yours is training the right identity. In the next chapter, you will learn how to replace removed distraction with systems that decide for you. So discipline no longer depends on effort, but on design. Chapter 4. Build systems that decide for you. Systems remove choice. Choice drains willpower. The disciplined life is pre-decided. Practical systems. Morning structure, focus blocks, shutdown rituals. The listener is reminded repeatedly. Systems are identity in action. Chapter 4. Build systems that decide for you. Discipline fails when decisions pile up. That is the problem. Every decision costs energy. Every choice creates friction. Enough friction and action stops. Systems remove choice. Choice drains willpower. The disciplined life is pre-decided. Say it again. The disciplined life is pre-decided. You do not wake up and decide who you are going to be. You wake up and follow the system. That's the key. Most people think discipline means trying harder. It is not. Discipline means deciding once, then obeying. If you're constantly choosing, you're constantly leaking energy. If you're constantly leaking energy, you will eventually quit. This is not a character flaw. This is design failure. You have a choice. You can continue to rely on willpower, or you can build systems that carry you when willpower is low. High performers do not trust themselves in the moment. They trust the structure they built in advance. That's the key. A system is not motivation. It is instruction. It tells you what happens next. When the system is clear, action is simple. When action is simple, consistency follows. This is how identity is built. Systems are identity in action. Say it again. Systems are identity in action. Every system you follow is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. Now understand this. If your days feel chaotic, it is because your systems are missing or weak. Chaos is not random. It is unstructured time. Structure creates calm. Structure creates focus. Structure creates reliability. Here is the first rule. Rule 1. Build a fixed morning structure. The morning sets the tone. If the morning is reactive, the day will be reactive. You do not start the day with input. You start the day with execution. Same wake time, same initial actions, same order, no decisions. This might include movement, silence, review, and the first focus task. The specifics matter less than the consistency. The purpose is simple. You begin the day already in control. That's the key. When the morning is structured, discipline feels lighter. You have momentum before distractions appear. You don't need their permission to do this. You don't need to copy anyone else. You design a morning you can repeat. Here is the second rule. Rule 2. Use focus blocks, not open-ended work. Open-ended work invites delay. It encourages wandering. Focus blocks create boundaries. You decide in advance. When the block starts, when it ends, what is worked on. During the block, there is one task. No switching, no checking. This is not about working longer. It is about working deliberately. Attention respects boundaries. That's the key. Most people try to focus while allowing interruption. That is not focus. Focus is protected time. If a task matters, it deserves a block. If it does not deserve a block, it does not matter. This clarity reduces stress. You're no longer deciding what to do every minute. The system already decided. Here is the third rule. Rule 3. End the day with a shutdown ritual. A disciplined life does not blur work and rest. It separates them. Without a clear end, the mind stays active. An active mind does not recover. The shutdown ritual is simple. You review what was done. You define the first task for tomorrow. You close all open loops. Then you stop. This tells the mind it is safe to disengage. That's the key. Recovery is not laziness. It is preparation. A system that never shuts down will eventually break. Now connect this to identity. When your day is structured, you begin to trust yourself. You show up when you said you would. You stop when you said you would. This builds self-respect. Identity is not built by grand actions. It is built by predictable ones. Systems make you predictable to yourself. Say it again. Systems make you predictable to yourself. You have a choice. You can continue to improvise your days, or you can pre-decide them. Improvisation feels free, but it is exhausting. Pre-decision feels rigid, but it is liberating. Freedom comes from reliability. That's the key. Now remove a common misunderstanding. Systems are not cages. They are containers. Inside the container, you can think deeply. You can create. You can execute. Without the container, everything leaks. This is why talented people fail. They rely on ability without structure. Ability without structure decays. Structure without ability still produces results. That is not opinion. That is observable. You don't need their permission to build systems. You do not need to explain your routine. You follow it because it works. Remember this phrase. The disciplined life is pre-decided. Say it again. The disciplined life is pre-decided. If you want to change who you are, change what decides your day. Remove decisions. Install systems. Let the system act when motivation does not. That's the key. In the next chapter, you will learn how to train your attention itself. So focus becomes a skill you can deploy on command, not a state you hope to feel. Chapter 5. Train your attention like a muscle. Focus is not talent. It is trained. No one is born with unbreakable attention. Attention is built the same way strength is built. Through repetition, through resistance, through restraint. What you practice grows. Say it again. What you practice grows. If you practice distraction, distraction strengthens. If you practice focus, focus stabilizes. That's the key. Most people treat attention as a personality trait. They say, I'm just not good at focusing. That statement is incorrect. You're not bad at focusing. You're untrained. And untrained systems fail under pressure. You have a choice. You can continue to treat attention as something you either have or don't, or you can train it deliberately. High performers do not hope for focus. They condition it. They understand something fundamental. Attention collapses before identity does. When attention breaks down, identity follows. When attention is protected, identity stabilizes. That's the key. You do not lose discipline all at once. You lose focus first. Then behavior slips. Then standards fall. So you protect attention before everything else. This chapter is about doing that systematically. Here is the first rule. Rule 1. Train attention in fixed intervals. Open-ended focus is a mistake. It creates pressure. Pressure creates avoidance. Training requires boundaries. You choose a duration. You commit to it. You do not break it. This might be 20 minutes. It might be 45. The exact length is not the point. The repeatability is. During this interval, attention stays on one object, one task, no switching. When the timer ends, you stop. This is not productivity. This is conditioning. That's the key. Every completed interval strengthens attention, not because the work was perfect, but because attention stayed in place. You are teaching the mind a simple lesson. Stay here, and over time, the mind learns. You do not increase duration until the current duration is stable. This is how strength is built. Gradual load. Consistent form. You don't need their permission to work this way. You don't need to explain why you are unavailable. You are training. Here is the second rule. Rule 2. Separate attention training from performance. Most people only try to focus when results matter. That is too late. You do not build strength during competition. You build it in training. So you train attention even when the task is unimportant. This is where controlled boredom comes in. Controlled boredom is intentional stillness without stimulation. No phone, no input, no entertainment. You sit, you walk, you wait. The goal is not to think. The goal is not to relax. The goal is to resist escape. That's the key. Every time boredom appears, the mind looks for an exit. If you provide one, distraction strengthens. If you do not, attention stabilizes. This is uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is evidence of weakness being exposed. Do not remove it. Sit with it. You have a choice. Escape boredom and stay fragile, or endure boredom and become resilient. Attention trained under boredom holds under pressure. That's the key. Here is the third rule. Rule 3. Do not multitask. Ever. Multitasking is not efficient. It is destructive. It trains the mind to switch rapidly. Switching weakens attention. Every time you switch tasks, attention fragments. Fragmented attention cannot go deep. Depth requires continuity. So you remove multitasking entirely. One task, one window, one focus block. This applies even to small actions. If you read, you read. If you write, you write. If you think, you think. You do not combine. This is not rigidity. This is clarity. That's the key. Now understand this principle. Attention follows reward. If distraction feels rewarding, attention will drift. If focus feels rewarding, attention will stay. So you change the reward system. You do not reward yourself for outcome. You reward yourself for adherence. Did you complete the focus block? That is success. Did you sit through boredom without escape? That is success. Did you keep attention on one task? That is success. This reframes training. You are no longer chasing results. You are reinforcing behavior. Behavior creates results. That's the key. Most people quit focus training too early. They expect immediate improvement. Attention does not work that way. It adapts slowly. It strengthens quietly. The gains show up later. Suddenly, you can sit longer. Suddenly, work feels less exhausting. Not because work changed, because attention did. You have a choice. You can quit because progress is invisible, or you can continue because the system is sound. Trust the system. Now, connect this back to identity. Every time you complete a focus interval, you prove something to yourself. You prove that attention is under your control. This proof compounds. Confidence is not a feeling. It is evidence. Evidence comes from repetition. Systems create repetition. Repetition creates evidence. Evidence creates identity. That's the chain. Say it again. What you practice grows. If you practice sustained attention, you become someone who can sustain attention. That identity will carry into everything else. Work, thinking, decision-making. You don't need their permission to train this way. You don't need external validation. The result will speak for itself. Now address a common mistake. Do not overload attention training. If you push too hard, you create resistance. Resistance leads to avoidance. Start small. Stay consistent. Consistency beats intensity. Say it again. Consistency beats intensity. This is how muscles grow. This is how attention grows. Now understand the consequence of neglect. If you do not train attention, it will decay. The environment will train it for you, and the environment rewards distraction. So if you do nothing, you're still training. You're just training the wrong thing. You have a choice. Train attention deliberately, or let distraction train you. That's the key. Protect attention first. Everything else depends on it. When attention is stable, discipline feels lighter. When attention is unstable, discipline feels forced. Do not confuse effort with effectiveness. Train the underlying capacity. That is attention. In the next chapter, you will learn why seeking validation undermines this training and how withdrawing from external approval strengthens internal authority. Chapter 6. Stop seeking validation. Validation is expensive. It costs attention. It costs clarity. It costs authority. External approval fragments internal authority. Say it again. External approval fragments internal authority. The more you perform for others, the less you become yourself. That's the key. Most people do not realize how much of their behavior is shaped by imagined observers. They think they are choosing freely. They are not. They are reacting. Reacting to expectations. Reacting to comparison. Reacting to the possibility of being seen. This reaction scatters action. When you seek validation, your attention splits. Part of you is doing the work. Part of you is watching yourself do the work. That split is costly. A divided mind cannot go deep. A divided mind cannot build discipline. You have a choice. You can act to be approved, or you can act to be precise. That's the key. High performers are not driven by applause. They are driven by standards. They do not ask, how does this look? They ask, is this correct? They do not optimize for visibility. They optimize for alignment. This is why their actions compound. Seeking validation creates scattered effort. You change direction based on feedback. You adjust based on reactions. This feels adaptive. It is not. It trains inconsistency. Every time you shift to please others, you weaken your internal signal. Over time, you stop trusting your own judgment. That's the cost. Here is the first rule. Rule 1. Separate performance from identity. What you produce is not who you are. What others think is not a measure of truth. When identity depends on reaction, behavior becomes unstable. So you remove the connection. You act according to standards, not applause. You measure execution, not response. This does not mean you ignore feedback. It means you do not chase it. Feedback is data. Validation is noise. That's the key. Most people confuse the two. They say they want feedback. What they want is reassurance. Reassurance weakens discipline. Discipline requires self-trust. Self-trust cannot exist if authority is external. You don't need their permission to proceed. You don't need confirmation to continue. You decide. You execute. Here is the second rule. Rule 2. Build in private first. Private effort builds internal authority. Public effort invites comparison. In the early stages of any discipline, privacy is protection. You train without announcing. You improve without broadcasting. You win without witnesses. These are private wins. Private wins matter because they are uncontaminated. No performance, no image management, no distraction, just execution. That's the key. Thinkers work alone. Athletes train away from crowds. Builders focus before they reveal. This is not secrecy. This is focus. Silence protects the process. If you expose unfinished work to the public, you invite noise. Noise pulls attention outward. Outward attention weakens internal control. You have a choice. Build quietly and become strong, or build loudly and become reactive. Here is the third rule. Rule 3. Reduce exposure to comparison. Comparison is a validation trap. It shifts your focus from execution to positioning, from progress to perception. You start asking the wrong questions. Am I ahead? Am I behind? How do I look? These questions do not improve performance. They dilute it. So you reduce exposure. You limit platforms that encourage comparison. You avoid unnecessary metrics. You stop monitoring others' progress. This is not avoidance. This is discipline. That's the key. A focused mind measures against standards, not people. Standards are stable. People are noise. Now understand the deeper issue. Seeking validation is not about confidence. It is about control. When you seek approval, you give others control over your emotional state. Approval feels good. Disapproval feels bad. This creates dependency. Dependency weakens authority. Authority must be internal. You have a choice. Let others regulate how you feel, or regulate yourself. That's the key. Silence plays a role here. Silence removes the audience. Without an audience, performance drops away. What remains is action. Solitude clarifies motive. Why are you doing this? Who is it for? In silence, the answer becomes obvious. You do it because it is correct, because it aligns with your standards. That alignment is strength. Here is a practical system. When starting a new discipline, delay public exposure. Set a private threshold. For example, complete 30 sessions before sharing progress. Maintain consistency for 90 days before seeking feedback. This creates a buffer. By the time others see the work, identity is already formed. Their reactions matter less. That's the key. Now address a common misunderstanding. Stopping validation seeking does not mean becoming isolated. It means becoming grounded. You can still collaborate. You can still communicate, but you're no longer dependent. You listen without needing approval. You adjust without needing praise. This is maturity. This is discipline. Now, connect this back to attention. Validation seeking constantly pulls attention outward. Outward attention fragments focus. When attention is fragmented, systems fail. When systems fail, discipline collapses. So you remove the cause. Stop performing for others. Perform for the standard. Say it again. The more you perform for others, the less you become yourself. Now reverse it. The more you act according to standards, the more yourself you become. That's the key. Identity is built in private. Authority is built in silence. Confidence is built through evidence. Evidence comes from repetition. Repetition requires focus. Focus requires internal control. This is the chain. Break validation seeking, and the chain strengthens. You don't need their permission to take this seriously. You don't need to announce your intentions. You act. You repeat. You let results accumulate quietly. This will feel uncomfortable at first. The absence of feedback feels like absence of progress. That is an illusion. Progress does not require witnesses. Say it again. Progress does not require witnesses. Most people never learn this. They burn energy managing perception. You will not. You will conserve energy for execution. That's the key. Now set the standard. From this point forward, you measure days by adherence, not applause. Did you follow the system? Did you execute the routine? Did you protect attention? If yes, the day counts. Nothing else matters. In the next chapter, you will learn how daily proof, not intention, builds identity and why small, repeatable actions matter more than any declaration ever could. Chapter 7. Identity is built through daily proof. Identity is not imagined. It is proven. You do not become confident by telling yourself you are. You become confident by acting consistently. Identity follows evidence. Say it again. Identity follows evidence. This is the principle behind all real transformation. Not belief, not desire. Action repeated daily creates proof. Every repeated action is a vote. A vote for who you are becoming. Small, private, deliberate votes. That's the key. Most people confuse intention with proof. They plan. They promise. They hope. They never act. Or they act inconsistently. That is why identity remains weak. Identity is fragile when there is no evidence. You have a choice. You can continue to rely on promises to yourself, or you can build evidence. High performers understand this. They operate through systems of daily proof. Writers write. Athletes train. Leaders show up. Every day, without exception, small actions repeated compound. This is not intuition. It is arithmetic. Say it again. Consistency outweighs intensity every time. It is better to do a small action daily than a large action sporadically. Consistency produces evidence. Evidence builds trust with yourself. Trust strengthens identity. Here is the first rule. Rule 1. Create non-negotiable actions. These are tasks you will perform no matter what. No excuses. No exceptions. This is not for performance. This is for proof. For example, write 500 words every morning. Meditate for 10 minutes every day. Plan the first task of tomorrow before leaving today. Each action signals, I follow through. I am reliable. Reliability is the foundation of identity. Here is the second rule. Rule 2. Frame actions as psychological contracts with yourself. A contract is binding. A contract is clear. A contract is non-negotiable. When you act according to the contract, you reinforce trust. When you break it, you weaken yourself. Most people do not treat habits as contracts. They treat them as suggestions. Suggestions are optional. Optional actions do not produce identity. You have a choice. Treat your daily actions as commitments. Keep them. Let them accumulate. Let them speak. This is how you prove who you are. Here is the third rule. Rule 3. Repeat regardless of feeling. Feelings are unreliable. Motivation is fleeting. External circumstances are irrelevant. Do it anyway. Repeat. Reinforce. Every time you act when it is uncomfortable, your identity strengthens. Every time you skip, your identity erodes. That's the key. High performers do not negotiate with moods. They do not negotiate with energy levels. They obey the system. Consistency beats intensity every time. Intensity without consistency is noise. Consistency without intensity is unstoppable. Your goal is the latter. Sustainable, repeatable, undeniable proof of who you are. Every completed action answers the question, who am I? The answer accumulates quietly, day by day. No one else decides. No one else observes. You decide. You execute. You prove. Here is a practical system. Identify the core actions that define the person you want to be. Make them non-negotiable and scheduled daily. Track completion as proof. Repeat without excuse. The compound effect is silent but powerful. After weeks, the evidence is undeniable. Your identity aligns with your actions. Remember, identity is not claimed. It is demonstrated. It is shown in repeated behavior. It is validated through execution. Say it again. Identity follows evidence. Most people overvalue intensity. They overestimate what they can do in bursts. They underestimate the quiet accumulation of repeated action. Do not make this mistake. Focus on daily proof. Focus on consistency. Focus on small, repeatable actions that reinforce who you are. This is how confidence is built. This is how authority over yourself is established. This is how discipline compounds. Now connect this to the next layer. Once you are building identity through daily proof, finishing what you start becomes automatic. You stop abandoning tasks. You stop negotiating with effort. You stop fragmenting your focus. Identity and follow-through are inseparable. In the next chapter, you will learn why finishing what you start is non-negotiable, and why completion is the ultimate test of identity. Chapter 8. Learn to finish what you start. Completion is the foundation of authority. Quitting is the training of weakness. Completion is character. Say it again. Completion is character. Most people believe effort equals achievement. It is not. Completion equals achievement. You can start brilliantly. You can begin with energy and clarity. If you do not finish, none of it matters. That's the key. Every task you abandon trains your mind to expect failure. Every task you complete trains your mind to expect reliability. Every completed task reinforces trust with yourself. Self-trust is not given. It is earned. Repeatedly, you have a choice. You can quit when the work is difficult. You can quit when it is boring. You can quit when it is unglamorous. Or you can finish. High performers finish. Every time, especially the tasks that feel tedious. Especially the tasks that feel unnecessary. Why? Because the easy tasks do not build character. The hard, boring, unglamorous tasks forge authority. That's the key. Consider an example. A writer completes the final draft, even when it is exhausting. An athlete finishes the final set, even when muscles burn. A professional closes the deal, even when the process is tedious. In each case, the act of finishing strengthens identity. The act of quitting weakens it. Here is the first rule. Rule 1. Every task must have a defined end. Vague beginnings produce vague endings. Ambiguity invites abandonment. Decide before you start, what does finished look like? When is this done? How will I know? Then follow it. No excuses. No deviation. Completion becomes measurable. Authority becomes visible. Here is the second rule. Rule 2. Normalize difficulty and boredom. Most tasks are not glamorous. Most work is repetitive. Most achievement is earned quietly. If you quit every time discomfort arises, you teach yourself to avoid challenges. If you persist through discomfort, you teach yourself to endure. Endurance is a skill. Endurance is identity. Say it again. Completion is character. Every time you finish a task that feels boring or difficult, your mind records a proof point. I can follow through. I can persist. I can be trusted. Self-trust is the currency of discipline. Without it, no system, no routine, no habit holds. You have a choice. You can accept erosion of trust, or you can reinforce it every day. Here is the third rule. Rule 3. Break large tasks into non-negotiable segments. Large tasks intimidate attention. Intimidation encourages quitting. Segment the work. Assign small, defined actions. Finish each segment. Accumulate completion. This is how authority compounds. Small finishes lead to bigger finishes. Bigger finishes strengthen identity. Never underestimate the psychological effect. Every unfinished task is stored in the mind as debt. Every completed task is stored as proof. Proof compounds faster than debt. Debt compounds faster than proof if ignored. That's the key. Now consider a common mistake. Many people focus only on starting strong. They wait for momentum to carry them. When momentum fades, so does action. Discipline is not momentum. Discipline is consistency under resistance. Finishing is the test. You don't need inspiration to finish. You need rules. You need a system. You need a commitment to follow through. Every system you build is null if you cannot finish. Every habit you form is hollow if you leave it incomplete. You have a choice. Complete the work or continue training weakness. That's the key. Here is the final perspective. Completion trains authority. Authority is the inner signal that you can be trusted. When you can trust yourself, focus improves. Systems hold. Identity strengthens. Quitting erodes all of this. Even small abandonments have cumulative effect. They whisper, "You are unreliable." You will hear the whisper if you do not act. Finish to silence it. Small, difficult, boring, unglamorous tasks. Finish them first. They form the foundation of everything else. Completion is not optional. Completion is non-negotiable. Completion is the test of identity. In the next chapter, you will learn why boredom is not a threat, but a gateway, and how enduring it strengthens focus, resilience, and self-mastery. Chapter 9. Boredom is the gateway to power. Boredom is not the enemy. It is a teacher. Most people run from boredom. They check their phones. They scroll. They distract themselves. This is not harmless. It is training. Every time you escape boredom, you train a weak mind. Every time you endure it, you train a strong one. If you cannot sit with boredom, you cannot build mastery. Say it again. If you cannot sit with boredom, you cannot build mastery. Boredom exposes weakness. It exposes impatience. It exposes dependence on stimulation. This is why it is valuable. Because what is exposed can be corrected. What is avoided grows uncontrolled. You have a choice. You can flee discomfort and remain fragile, or you can endure it and grow resilient. That's the key. High performers understand this. They practice stillness. They resist the urge for constant input. They let their attention settle. This is not relaxation. This is training. Controlled, deliberate, repeated training. Here is the first rule. Rule 1. Schedule boredom deliberately. Do nothing for a fixed interval. No phone. No music. No reading. No distraction. Sit. Walk. Observe your thoughts. Do not escape. Start with short intervals. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Gradually increase. Every time you resist the urge to flee, your mind grows stronger. Every time you give in, weakness is reinforced. That's the key. Here is the second rule. Rule 2. Treat boredom as resistance training. Discomfort is the weight. Your attention is the muscle. Endure and strength increases. When boredom arises, do not shift. Do not act. Do not seek relief. Notice the impulse. Observe it. Hold your attention steady. This is the exercise. Repetition is essential. Strength is built incrementally. Most people cannot sit for 10 minutes without distraction. That is why focus collapses so easily. They have never trained attention under resistance. You have a choice. You can continue to chase constant stimulation, or you can endure discomfort and develop mastery. That's the key. Here is the third rule. Rule 3. Use boredom to reset attention. When the mind is overstimulated, depth is impossible. Noise and input fragment focus. A brief period of deliberate boredom restores capacity. It creates clarity. It allows the next focus block to be deeper, stronger. Do not underestimate this. It is not wasted time. It is preparation. Most people think mastery is about doing more. It is not. Mastery is about control. Control over attention. Control over reaction. Boredom builds that control. Every time you resist, you reinforce identity. You prove to yourself, I am not a slave to stimulus. I can remain steady. I can endure. This is subtle, but it compounds. And over weeks, it transforms attention and character. Now connect this to the previous chapters. Silence was training the mind to settle. Systems created predictable action. Daily proof built identity. Completion enforced authority. Boredom strengthens focus itself. It prevents collapse under distraction. It ensures the systems and routines you built do not fail when effort is low. This is why it is a gateway. You have a choice. Avoid boredom and remain weak. Endure boredom and gain control. That's the key. Here is a practical exercise. Sit for 10 minutes in stillness. Do not check any device. Notice impulses but resist them. Gradually extend the interval. Repeat daily. Treat this as weightlifting for your attention. Repetition creates strength. Strength becomes automatic. Automaticity becomes identity. Remember, growth occurs where resistance exists. Boredom is resistance. Mastery is growth. Say it again. If you cannot sit with boredom, you cannot build mastery. You do not need anyone's permission to practice this. You do not need an audience. You need discipline. You need repetition. You need consistency. In the next chapter, you will learn why becoming predictable to yourself is the final step, and why self-trust, built from repeated action, completes the foundation of focus, discipline, and identity. Chapter 10. Become predictable to yourself. Discipline is not intensity. Discipline is predictability. The strongest people are consistent, not intense. Say it again. The strongest people are consistent, not intense. You do not become reliable by doing more sporadically. You become reliable by doing the same essential actions every day without negotiation. Consistency is the backbone of self-trust. Self-trust is the foundation of all success. Most people operate reactively. They decide moment to moment. They respond to mood. They respond to impulse. This creates chaos. Chaos weakens identity. Chaos erodes focus. You have a choice. You can continue to live in unpredictability, or you can make yourself predictable. That's the key. High performers are predictable to themselves first. They do what they said they would do, even when it is hard, even when no one is watching, even when motivation is absent. This is how self-trust is built. Every completed routine, every followed system, every repeated action reinforces it. Here is the first rule. Rule 1. Make your standards non-negotiable. Decide in advance what matters. Do not waver. Do not compromise. Do not let circumstance dictate adherence. Consistency is not convenience. It is design. It is choice executed repeatedly. Here is the second rule. Rule 2. Remove variability from essential actions. Wake up at the same time. Follow the same morning routine. Complete your focus blocks. End your day with your shutdown ritual. Predictable action produces predictable results. Predictable results reinforce self-trust. Self-trust reinforces identity. That's the key. Here is the third rule. Rule 3. Let predictability be your accountability. External accountability is optional. Internal predictability is mandatory. Do not measure yourself by others' reactions. Measure yourself by adherence. Did you do what you said you would do? Yes or no? Repeat daily. Repeat without negotiation. Repeat until it becomes automatic. Most people overestimate their ability to rely on motivation. They underestimate the power of pre-decided action. Do not make this mistake. When you are predictable to yourself, no temptation is strong enough to sway you. No distraction can derail you. No challenge can shake your routine. This is the ultimate form of authority. Authority over your mind. Authority over your attention. Authority over your identity. Everything else flows from this. All systems, all focus, all discipline depend on self-trust. If you cannot rely on yourself, nothing else matters. If you can, everything else follows. That is the final lesson. Build predictability. Build self-trust. Build your life. Now, take action. Review your routines. Enforce your standards. Follow your systems. Train your attention. Finish what you start. Sit with boredom. Act consistently. Do not negotiate. Do not wait for permission. Do not rely on motivation. Predictability is freedom. Self-trust is power. Identity is proof. You have a choice. Choose to be reliable. Choose to be strong. Choose to become the person you want to be. And if you're ready to continue this transformation, make sure you subscribe now for more audiobook strategies that condition your mind, sharpen your focus, and reinforce discipline. Your future self depends on it.